Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss DD Basu's first chapter, historical background of Indian Constitution. So through our course, we will move from basic to brilliance, talking about what was the historical background behind our constitution. The constitution we find today is a result of series of steps that were gradually evolved through process, starting East India Company. First, when India was colonized, there was rule of East India Company. Then from the company, the rule moved to in the hand of crown. Like if we talk about company, the East India Company was a charter company which was formed in 1600s, and when the company initially was a trading company, but it established the rule through the Bengal. We have seen in the battles of Plassey, then Buxar. There in Bengal, we saw the dual system of government, where both Nizam and uh, company used to rule. So it transitions from trading to territorial expansion. So starting from the company rule, then how there were various acts that regulated the activities of the company. After revolt of 1857, the crown assumed the role of government in India. After 1857, key features. What were the key features? Like in a historical underpinning of our Indian Constitution, we will see what are the relevance of the different act and what were the changes. Like from company to crown in 1858 Act. Then Secretary of State was appointed in British. Who was Secretary of State? He was a member of British Cabinet. Governor General. Governor General was Crown's representative. Then start of centralization. So initially, then we find evolution of legislative councils. Different legislative council act were there. Like there was decentralization. Initially, when company assumed the rule, it moves toward the centralization. But after 1857 revolt, there was gradual decentralization. That we find there was engagement of Indians. In 1861 Act, non-official members were added. Yani number of members were increased. Then gradual progress was in 1892 Act, which introduced the indirect elections. The word indirect elections were used. So gradually we are moving toward the responsible government, and we find decentralization. Indirect elections, then 1909 reforms, Morley-Minto reforms. What were in that? It also in there also the council was expanded, but one shortcoming was that it for the first time introduced the separate electorate system for Muslims. What do you mean by separate electorate? Is the reservation and separate electorate same? No. Separate electorate is different, as in this system only Muslim members will be elected by the Muslims only. Then Montagu Chelmsford reform 1919. Here the separate electorate was enlarged. And there was a diarchy was introduced at the provinces level, and bicameralism was introduced at central level. What is the difference between the two? Diarchy means the provincial subjects were divided into two. Some were transferred, some were reserved. What were the transferred subject? These were transferred to the council, and some subjects were reserved by the governor for himself. Next, bicameralism. What do we mean by bicameralism? The two houses, upper house and lower house, that was introduced in the central level. But crown and governor still has overriding powers. Even though it seems that they are moving toward decentralization, but still Indians don't have much power. After that, one of the landmarks in our constitutional history is Government of India Act 1935. Most of the portion in our constitution we took from this act. Like some of the important provisions was, it talk about all India Federation. Then it talks about division of power. Like in our constitution, we have division of power between center and states. How the there is division? It is through the different list, like union list, provincial list, and concurrent list. Next is provincial autonomy. In 1935, it talked about the provincial autonomy and abolition of diarchy. The diarchy system in the last act was abolished in 1935 act. Also, there was bicameralism was introduced in the provinces, which we find in 1919 act. It was introduced at the central level. Now bicameralism was introduced at provinces level also. And diarchy was introduced at central level, but it was never implemented. Like diarchy, I have told there were two types of subject. There is provision of diarchy at the central level in the 1935 act. Next, moving toward, after that, there was some other developments along with this act, like Simon Commission. What was Simon Commission? It was to review the act of 1919. But why there was boycotted? Because it was all English commission. It doesn't have any Indian members in it. Another development was Communal Award of 1932. What does the relevance of it? What is its impact? Like separate electorate for the minorities. It targeted to bifurcate our society into different members. The feeling of separatism. Next, roundtable conferences. The 3 roundtable conferences were held in the series. And next is Pune Pact. What was Pune Pact? Like Britishers wanted that separate electorate should be given to the depressed classes or Dalits. But after that, in the Pune Pact, the joint electorate for the Dalits, it called for reservation. Indian Independence Act 1947. As you know, after when there was series of developments for making of the constitution, there was also a question arise that India, there should be partition. It was the key demand of Muslim League. So in the Independence Act, after the Mountbatten Plan, there a partition was declared and India and Pakistan became 2 dominions. Next, crown sovereignty ended. Then power was transferred to the Indian Constituent Assembly. And after that, there was process of making of the constitution. In 1950, we became a republic. And we have our own constitution. Governors and Governor General constitutional head and India became free to have its own constitution. These were all the provisions of 1947 Act. Next, colonial legacy. Our constitution still have some colonial legacy. In colonial times, not everything were bad. The governance system we have borrowed from it, like some features like parliamentary system. Sometimes debates arise why we have followed the parliamentary system. So we have followed or borrowed the parliamentary system from colonial times. Next is rule of law. Rule of law, that everything should be governed by the law, not by a person. Next is single citizenship. Even if we call that we have a federal constitution or quasi-federal constitution, but we have one unitary features, we have single citizenship. And also we have bicameral legislature. Next point is civil services, judiciary structure. Rejected the colonial controls. Some provisions we rejected outrightly, like a separate electorate, like absolute discretion of governor. We see that discretionary power or veto power is not absolute. It can also be questioned in some ways. Key takeaway, that how from empire to becoming a republic. While you read this chapter, you should have to keep in mind that you have some frame that we have to study. We will, after reading this chapter, we will know about that how empire changed to a republic. So Indian voices slowly integrated, and each act continued toward the decentralization and engaging of the Indians. Also, national consciousness increased. These all things led to the foundation for our constitution. So, colonial centralization to constitutional sovereignty. This is all about the first chapter. We have the brief introduction, and you have the idea what you have to study and what is in the different acts. Thank you.